You're listening to the Fantasy Wildcard Podcast.
Good evening, welcome to the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty Show. I'm your host, Kev. You can follow me on X at the Dynasty Mind, fresh from the UK FFC. With me tonight, we've got the best one from the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty Show. Ali and Mags, they've still been banished. The feedback's been taken aboard. They're not allowed back on until they improve the roast jokes and until they improve as people mainly. But for the moment, you've just got me as the host. But we've replaced them guys because they're rubbish. We've got two amazing guests on tonight. We're going to be talking a little bit of Devy, so it felt right to get on 2/3 of the Wildcard Devy team. We've got Phil and Jord. You can follow the crew at Wildcard Devy. Delighted to be on with you tonight, boys. How are you doing? Come to you first, Phil.
Yeah, I'm excellent, mate. It's all downhill from that introduction, isn't it, really? What else can go wrong? No, delighted to be here, mate. Delighted to talk a little bit of Devy, talk about the next kind of incoming class. All right, so people are just getting used to the rookies they've added to their lineups. We're going to start dropping some names in that you might want to be looking at in time for next year. So yeah, absolutely buzzing, mate.
Good stuff. And George, you've got a reputation of coming on this show and absolutely smashing it. So how are you feeling about tonight?
I'm not sure about smashing it, but yeah, it's been a while since I've been on. So, and as soon as I heard there were a show about, who to avoid and who to pick up, then I thought, like you said, I've been on for the last 2 years. I thought I'd continue. It started off well, didn't it? Year one, year two, Quentin Johnson's put me down a bit. So hopefully it'll bounce back in year two and it look a bit better.
We'll edit that out. Like I think year one, Hamfrey, and year two, Roma Dunze. I didn't even know Roma Dunze was then, so you've smashed it on that. And yeah, look, it's going to be an exciting show. We've got some targets and some fades from next year's rookie class. It can change ever so slightly if players stay in college a little bit longer, but in the main, the majority of these guys tonight are going to be coming out into your rookie drafts next year. And obviously, this is key for your Devy leagues as well. These are assets on your rosters you can move, etc. But from a Dynasty Show point of view, it's just to get the upper hand and get a think about how strong is the class at certain positions and what sort of names do I need to get my little notepad out and jot down ready for your rookie drafts next off season. So, yeah, we're going to be previewing the class. The Devy boys are the experts. They're doing the heavy lifting tonight. I'll just be chilling out, filling in, trying to blag it, and we'll see how we get along. We're going to come to the targets first of all. This guy's got the perfect name for a quarterback, and this is someone that you're looking to target, right, Phil?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I figured we'd start with Jackson Dart, the Ole Miss quarterback. He is coming into his fourth season this year. After an initial season at USC, he transferred across to Ole Miss. And it's fair to say that he's got better every single year. I know Jord does a lot of work looking at Ole Miss, and I'm sure he'll vouch for it as well. This is a kid who's on the up and up, and in a QB class at the moment that's kind of, I won't say maligned, but people can't pick a favorite. There's no standout superstar like there has been in the last few drafts. If you think back to this year, Caleb Williams was your clear number one, and then people had a real toss-up between Drake May or Jaden Daniels, who kind of burst onto the scene. And then even the year before, it was Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, then Anthony Richardson burst in. Like, at the moment, there's no real consensus guy at the quarterback position, although there are several who we've kind of alluded to have got the potential to make the step. And for me, Jackson Dart's the pick of that bunch at the moment as one who could really make a name for himself this year and be a potential first-round lock come, your rookie drafts next year.
And as an Ole Miss alumni legend, sort of inside expert, Jord, what's your thoughts on Jackson Dart?
Yeah, I think Phil covered a lot of it there. I think the big thing is a bit similar to Jaden Daniels, not in play style, but like he has improved every year since, especially when he came over to the SEC in his 2 years. I think in year one at Ole Miss after year one at USC, where he didn't see much action. I think he had like 11 interceptions, but he moved that down into like year 3 to like 4 or 5 interceptions. Like really looked after the ball, which is quite easy to do in the Lane Kiffin system. It's quite a nice system to be in as a quarterback, but he's like I say, all the skills that Phil mentioned there, and on top of that, he's just a natural born leader. You know, the way that Lane Kiffin speaks about him. I think on the SC Media Days yesterday, he said with the new EA Sports college football game, if there was a leadership rating, it would be 99 for because he's just recruited this full-on class for next year. You know, he's just really good in that aspect. And then, like I say, if he can take another step into year 3, like he has been doing, and it would be perfect if you can get some stock into him, and then that happens. It'd be a really good.
Yeah, I think with that, like, look, I'm going to be blank, so but I think looking at the numbers improvement each year in a lot of the different areas, the thing that stood out to me is nearly 40 rushing yards per game. I think that's really good for thinking about Dynasty ceiling and floor each week. If he comes through this season, obviously. Lands with that excellent draft capital as well. I love the frame, 6'2", 215. He's playing in the SEC, which I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to what conference you play in. Like, SEC is brilliant. If it was one of the other ones, like where Trev used to play, or Drake May, maybe I wouldn't be as glowing. But yeah, Jackson Dart, I think there's a lot to like about him. And just when you tease then about the NCAA game, I'm going to have to buy it, man. I'm going to have to buy it. Love it. Okay, right. We're going to move on from Jackson Dart, and we're going to come to our first running back of the evening, and a guy that you're really, really into, Jord.
I am into him and stuff and everything, but I started writing down a quarterback at first, and I saw the rules of because I've already got 2 targets, it has to be a running back.
Is this where you're getting it in? Is this where you're getting it in, Jord?
No, I'll just say his name. I was going to put Jalen Milroe, but anyway, we'll save it for Amari Hampton, who's still a really good running back. It's just he's like you say in the notes, he's a big, powerful workhorse, 6 foot, 220 pounds, just a violent runner who just. If you go put on his tape and stuff and everything, he just breaks tackles and just constant positive contact yards. And he's not obviously he's not got the fastest speed and stuff. You know, once he gets in the open, he does break away from some, but when he gets to the NFL, he probably struggles to break away. But I know a lot of people look for that. You know, obviously Devon A-Chain that came out last year with that breakaway speed, can pick up yards. But I don't mind a big guy who's a workhorse who can just constantly get positive yards, you know, even if it's 4 or 5 yards, you know, if you feed him the ball, he's not the same as Derrick Henry, but same as Derrick Henry, where he just constantly gets positive yards, and he can get a few breakaway 20-30 yard gains. Like I say, he's got decent speed. His vision's really, really good. Something that's really pick up on tape and stuff, where he's always looking at the next level on the pitch and stuff, where as soon as there's a gap, where can I go to get some more yards? And if there isn't any more yards, we'll just truck through people and make sure he gets some positive yards. Yeah, he's definitely, as it stands now, a day 2 guy as well. So decent draft capital should be for him as well. You know, for 2025 draft if he comes out.
Yeah, I love that. And I know on the last Wildcard Devy Show, Phil, you mentioned about your pet peeve is player comps. Is there going to be lazy comps to seeing UNC and seeing someone that's maybe a powerful runner but not got amazing speed like Javonte Williams?
I think that's a really easy comp to make. You know, there are slight differences. I do think Javonte shows slight more elusiveness than perhaps Amari Hampton has done to date. Amari Hampton really is a kind of north-south thumper. Like George said, he'd rather run over you than run through you. He's got work to do. I mean, we talked about him in our growth section for last week's show in terms of players we want to see more from. And this isn't a knock on him at all, because I certainly think he's talented enough to do it. But he just, for me, still sometimes runs a little bit too upright. He's a big guy. He's a really big frame to hit, and he doesn't do anything to kind of lower that pad level and make himself that little bit harder to hit. He's an easy target for linebackers. I think, you know, what you can't knock is the production. He's been incredibly productive, particularly last season. It was either Drake May with his arms or Marion Hampton with his legs, and it was a really, really good combo. There were games where he just absolutely took over and ran wild on people. And I think in the system this year, he's going to be asked to do an awful lot more. So there's an awfully good chance for him to show that development that we're looking for, certainly.
That's good stuff. I think, it's an interesting one for me. A lot of the things you both said then, it got me thinking a little bit of Braylon Allen. Like, I'm not saying they're the same, because there's quite a few poundage difference in them. Sorry, Braylon, but you are carrying a bit. But yeah, I think, look, 29 receptions to sophomore is pretty good. Like, I think what we have to just take with a pinch of salt is, like, these aren't 10, 12, 14 yards per reception. These are like little dump offs where he's catching it and doing a little bit with it. So continued growth there. I've got slight reservations about what we've seen from UNC running backs, where they're coming with a little bit of hype, I think, like Javonte Williams, Michael Carter. They've not really done it like consistently. That's going to really wind up Jack as well, saying that, giving any stick to those guys. But yeah, I think that there's a lot to like. Just how it translates to Dynasty, I'm not too sure with that pass game upside and also just that recent history of UNC as well. So I'm doing really well blagging it so far. We're going to come to the next guy at running back. Now, you've got to be really careful with this guy's first name, because you might think that this is purely Dynasty and we're not talking about Devy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you might recognize the name. It's a certain Mr. T. Etienne. But this is the younger sibling, Trevor. Okay. Trevor Etienne has moved this season. He's gone across from Florida to Georgia, which is a big, big move to make in the rivalries within the SEC. But that's just the world we live in now, with the transfer portal. Guys can try and maximize their opportunities when they see it. He's taken the jump. And yeah, he stands to be the lead guy in one of the most talented running back rooms in the country. Great lateral agility and short area quickness, good vision, and he's going to stand to make his money in fantasy, a bit like Travis, in the sense that he's a really good pass catcher. He runs a good route tree out of the backfield and shows good hands. Like, he's going to be a potential PPR darling. Good, quick kind of stop-start lateral ability, and like I say, he'll want to forge his own identity. He won't want to always be looked at as Travis's little brother, but it's really difficult to escape the fact that they do very similar things and do them both well.
Yeah, it's a fair comment. That I think, from what I know about Etienne, like Etienne, which one, Kev? Come on, be more specific. Trevor. Thing about Trevor, Travis is more highly touted than Trevor. So, in terms of that sort of percentage, Jord, what would you say Trevor is of Travis? Like, would you say he's 80% talent-wise, or 50%, 2%?
2%. What we've seen so far, it's difficult. Because I was going to make the comment, like, I'd say there's quite a bit of talent there and stuff. I don't know if I'm ready to go quite as high as like 80 or 90 and stuff, but I'm not saying it's not there either. It's difficult, because what I was going to mention is that when he was at Florida, we saw that when he was on the field, we saw he had the talent, but I just didn't see it enough from the fact that, like, they used to share the roles. I think it was Montrell Johnson?
Montrell Johnson, yeah.
Yeah, we used to really like use him as a duo, and I know there's a lot of the Florida fans, especially, that we wanted to see more of him on the field, taking more snaps, and you just didn't see that. And I do have a feeling that you're probably going to see that maybe a little bit with George. I know they have got talented running backs behind him and stuff, but I feel like he will take a bit more of the workload over there. I know that over in George they like to go through the running backs as well, but just look at the talent behind. Like I said, there is some good ones. There's a lot of inexperience behind there, so I feel like he might take a lot, and we'll really see how good he really is this year. That's what I'm hoping as well.
Yeah, I think the Florida to George move's really interesting. I know that just the initial reaction to that from a Devy point of view was really good. I know this because I have got Trevor in a few places. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I might try and move off him a little bit, because I quite like that move when there's a bit of hype to try and get off some of the some of the Devy guys that are in the final season heading into the NFL. But biggest thing that stood out for me, like stat wise, in his career, 30 for 30 on receptions, like 30 targets, 30 receptions. I love that, and it ties into what you both said about like the pass catching upside. There was some really good slot work as well, which just shows it's not just these fluky dump offs, which might be like towards the end of the game where it's just padding stats. These are manufactured and well worked receiving yards. There is a bit of pause with pass blocking, I feel, and also that unquestioned of like workload. It's difficult because at places like Georgia, they haven't been known in the past to spread it out when they had like loads of talent, and Chubb and Michelle and DeAndre Swift, etc. But yeah, I think it's seen as a positive move to Georgia, and I'm excited to see how my lottery ticket grows over the next 6 to 9 months.
I certainly think at the minute, Kev, like when you talk about this running back class, it's really highly sought after. People are making big noises about it, and I think he's one that at the moment at cost, like keep talking about where you're going to draft them all. Like if you were going to make a rookie draft like today, I think you'd get bigger value on someone like Trevor Etienne than you would guys that have maybe been more highly touted. I think you can get bang for your buck on where you'd probably take him at the moment, certainly.
Love that. So yeah, if you're in my leagues, Jord, Phil, you know what to do. Yeah, we're gonna move on from running back now to our first wide receiver target. And being honest, I wasn't shocked, and you can see he's absolutely smiling his face off to talk about this guy. Who's your wide receiver target, Jord?
It's another big guy in it, obviously. Continuing the trend. T-Mac, Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona. Yeah, 6'5", 210 pounds. You know, like I've got a type. It's obvious. We know that. But this guy is something else. He's really like come alive over these last 2 seasons. When the talk was of Luther Burden and Evan Stewart, who've transferred to Oregon now, this guy for me has leaped above Evan Stewart, and he's alongside Luther Burden for the top 2 wide receivers in 2025 class. He's got elite hands. He's when you're watching a wide receiver, there's a lot of wide receivers in college that like to use the body to catch the ball, and it can be like a bit of a downside and stuff and everything. Not that they can't, but this guy, his catch radius is insane, and he'll go up and climb that ladder and catch the ball, you know, wherever it's placed. If it's a bad throw and stuff, he's got that agility and, like I say, that climb to pick it out. And his route running solid. Especially, it's very similar to Roma Dunze's, but when you get down into that 20-yard line and stuff where it's really tight, you can just make cornerbacks look silly. And especially last year against Colorado, coming up against Travis Hunter, who was meant to be one of the best cornerbacks coming out, scored a touchdown on him, over 100 yards. Not all on Hunter and stuff, but he made 2 or 3 catches when Hunter was tracking mark. And there is concerns how much space he can create, you know, as a route runner and stuff. He's a good route runner, but he doesn't need that much space. I know, like, there's been a lot of talk on these shows and stuff and everything about Drake London, things like that.
No.
You know, like, when he came out of college, a lot of people said the same, but I just think this guy is built different. You know, he's going to be good at the next level. I can't see why he wouldn't be. I've apart from Quentin Johnson, I'm quite good at calling out big guys, and I'm just hoping this guy's the same, because I've got a lot of love for T-Mac.
And speaking of love, like, I know obviously you've got a loving wife who just give you some tickets to the Euro finals and that, but I think if you was ever to go on to Love Island, like, we know your type, Jord, I think we'd have a good chance of matching you up. And them big massive dudes with that wingspan is right up your street. So feel like, are you feeling the same sort of vibes towards T-Mac, we'll call him?
Yeah, he's like prototypical size, speed, body control's outstanding for a guy his size, and he's got all the traits to be a proper high-end traditional wide receiver one. I think the one thing that gets lost sometimes, because he's 6'5", 210, you know, he's a big guy, like, is just how quick he is. Like, quick off the line, like, deceptively, and sometimes it looks, dare I say, ungainly in such a big frame, but he really does a really good job of getting off the line quick. And, after that, if he gets his hands on you, it's game over. He's going to beat you. There's no such thing as a 50-50 ball. They're all 60-40, at least in his favour, with that catch radius and that size. He's going to be exciting. And last year, there were questions when Marvin Harrison was coming into his final season about, what else does he still have to prove? Does he have anything left to get better at? At the moment, you could ask the same for Tet. I'm not saying they're in the same caliber of prospect, but in terms of for their skill set, what do they still have to show to get better? He wins at what he does now is what's going to be successful for him in the league. I don't think there's a great deal more he needs to put on tape other than show that he can do the same consistently.
Yeah, I think from the little bits I've seen, big dude, highlight catches. Absolutely contested catch genius. Can't say his first name, so it reminds me of a dinosaur, Pterodactyl. So I'm going to call him Pterodactyl McMillan because he's flying high like pterodactyls did.
Yeah, big wingspan.
Big wingspan, yeah. So that's one to keep it right down on your notepad, anyone listening. Lots to like in his metrics. PFF grading him really well. Yards per route ran, absolutely great. And I really like the slot usage above 20%. For a guy his size, it's really easy to think, right, pigeonholed outside wide receiver. I think the thing is with outside wide receivers purely, they are situation dependent more than, say, your balanced or your slot receivers, because the passes are outside the numbers, they tend to be deep. I kind of just hope that when he does come into the NFL that a team doesn't just pigeonhole him on the outside. I'd like to continue to see that slot usage. Otherwise, I think he could be potentially boom bust like all these outside receivers are. But if you two are endorsing him and he's going to get some slot work, he's got to be a lot better than Drake London, right? Where's that laughing sound?
It is funny you say that, Kev, because obviously on Friday's show, we did a piece about what needs to happen in the NFL this season for some of these Devy guys to really get the draft capital they need in your dynasty leagues. One of my thoughts or kind of train of thought was, Drake London and Tet McMillan. We need Drake London to step up and be everything that Mag says he's not. In order for Tet McMillan to get drafted in those top 3 draft picks, without him, because there is always that element of recency bias. If Drake London stinks it up again this year and doesn't show that development, people are going to look at him and go, just another big guy. He'll be another Drake London. And that immediate hit will either give someone a steal further down the draft board, it's all there. A good year for Drake London will be a great year for Tet.
Yeah, and we had obviously plenty of negative things to say about Drake London. He got a few of these. Also, a guy that I picked out was Marvin Harrison Jr. So we're going to go to his old college now and pick out a guy that you'll be looking to target at wide receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about Emeka Egbuka. It's only right on one of our shows with the Devy squad involved that someone talks about an Ohio State player, and Jack's not here to do it for once. Listen, Egbuka is like the forgotten man in this wide receiver lineup at the moment. When we're talking about the big names at the position, we're talking about Tet, we're talking about Luther Burden, we're talking about Evan Stewart, but Emeka Egbuka was expected to come out last year. He had an injury-plagued season and decided he'd go back to school one more year. And we've talked about it at length on the Devy Show about how what he needs to have this year is the Chris Olave comeback season, where he stays in for one more year and really uses it to boost his draft stock. He is a skilled wide receiver who offers great route running and separation and playmaking. Inside, so the way Ohio State use him, they use him as what they call their move receiver in their offense. So it lines up in the slot, but he's the versatile piece. He's in motion in a vast majority of their plays, and it serves him well. He does a lot of the dirty work in between the numbers, in the middle of the field, in that kind of short to intermediate route, and he's just a gritty chain mover. And I think that's the role that he stands to play at the next level. He's high IQ, good run after the catch. And I just think he's got a really high ceiling as a slot receiver that can get open. And at the moment, like, you look at your Pukas, you look at your Cooper Cups, you look at, I know he's not quite the same body profile, but an Amon-Ra, that they get open in the same way. And I just feel like I wanted to mention him tonight because he's the name that people have forgot about because of last season, because of the injury. And yeah, just want to remind people that he's there and he stands to be a very, very good player for a long time, I think.
Yeah, the wide receiver factory of Ohio State. It's continuing to churn it out as such, I guess. For you, Jord, like a pick, we did the obviously lazy comparison on Hampton to Javonte. Like, are people going to see Ohio State slot receiver and think, "Oh, is this guy JSN?"
I mean, I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan, so I'm going to say not as good as GSN, but yeah, they probably will say that. But I think there's similarities definitely, but there is a lot of difference between the two as well. And I think Phil made some great points there. He is the forgotten man at Ohio State, because of last year, and especially with the hype around Jeremiah that's coming through, and you've got Carnell Tate there and things, and because he's missed a lot last season, he is the forgotten man. But I expect him to have a good season, just very similar to like you mentioned, Chris Olave and stuff, and he'll be a top receiver, in the 2025 draft class. And if you go around looking at draft, like if you're looking at like mock drafts now, he's still going first round. Although the people like in fantasy and in Devy and stuff might have forgot about him, there's a lot of people that are analysed and stuff, and they still realise that he is a real talent. And if he can stay fit this year, it's going to be brilliant for him, and it'll be thereabouts. And it'll be, like I say, he's, like Phil mentioned, he's just so elusive. Like it's just really hard to pick up this guy. Like you think you can. You've got him and stuff and everything, and he's just you can look away for a second and he's gone. He's really good. Forgotten man, but talented.
Yeah, and he's got them initials EE, so I hope he's got a pretty decent reception on him. Yeah, so that's my contribution to Egg Book. But seriously, I think there's lots to like. Again, really strong catch percentage, which it ties in with slot usage, which is fantastic at. And despite being in the slot, yards per out run is really strong. I think it was a disappointing shortened last season, but I do agree, like slot archetype is what I'm looking for, especially at that high end, thinking people like Amon-Ra, CD Lamb, Keenan Allen when he's been in that role. So it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out for him, sort of where he lands next off season. But yeah, it's an interesting one because looking at some of his numbers, like I personally thought some of his numbers were more impressive than Marvin Harrison. Now, part of that is due to being in the slot, getting the easier stuff. Harrison was on the outside more, but he's someone that I really like. And it wasn't until I really dug into numbers that I thought, oh, yeah, it looks better on numbers than some of the bits I'd seen previously. So we've wrapped up the targets. So I hope you've made note of those. You also need to make notes of these next 5 because these are players that you'll be looking to avoid or temper your expectations for going into next season. We're going to come to QB first, and a guy that's had quite a lot of hype early on in his Devy career, but not really come through in the clutch, right, Jord?
Yeah, it's a tough one. This because obviously we've gone in unfazed. I think Phil at the top of the show. Phil, when we mentioned quarterbacks, there's a bunch of quarterbacks who can make a step this year and really push themselves into the top 3 or top quarterback and stuff, in the class. And I have got the quarterback I'm going to talk about is Joel from Penn State, and I have got a lot of exposure to him, like in drafts, from the first 2 years, when he came in. It's like I say, it's strange because he's got a lot of good stuff about him, It's like the prototypical size, things like that. But these last 2 years, especially last year, as a sophomore, his second year, starting, just his footwork obviously is a concern. He seems to get tangled up like when throwing off his platform and stuff, when you don't need to throw off his platform, you just want to get your feet settled into it and make the throw. And it's like, obviously sometimes you can't always do that, but there's times when he should be able to do it, but he's too busy. I don't know if he is because he's so big, just being tangled up, but it's just the performances, the big ones for me, the performances against the elite in the Big Ten. When he came up against Michigan and Ohio State, he really struggled, like I say, especially last year, as a sophomore. But so even though I've got a lot of exposure to him, I would avoid him, fade him as of now. But there's also a massive chance that he could really step up this year, like a lot of the other quarterbacks in this class, and totally make me look stupid with this fade.
That's interesting. That I think what he was describing, like a big guy with like long arms and getting tangled up. I was thinking of Mr. Tickle, if I'm honest, like Mr. Men character. I can't get that image out of my head now. I'm not going to ask you for a Mr. Men comparison, Phil, but what's your exposure like to Allah?
Well, if it could get any worse from a Devy perspective, there were two guys that in that class that were really big recruits and kind of big names in Devy, Drew Aller and then Cade Klubnik. I went on the Cade Klubnik side of things, and he looks even worse than Drew Aller. So even the Devy guys don't win every time. Listen, it is interesting, like, because one of the things when I watch Drew Aller, like when you watch his tape, I see exactly what Jord means about those arms, and because he doesn't set his feet very well. His footwork is inconsistent, and he tends to like throw with all arm, like no kind of upper body movement in it. Everything comes from the shoulder down, like, and it's weird. It means that often he's letting go of the ball too high and sailing it. And yeah, it's odd. He's got work to do, but the traits are there, the talent's there. There's not often guys get so highly recruited and it is a complete and utter whiff. Like there's talent there, and he's got that reputation for a reason. I just think one of the biggest things is the leadership thing. Penn State have struggled in the biggest moments in the biggest games at the moment. In conference and in division. At the moments when they really need him to step up, he hasn't done it so far. And I think him, how he interviews in the kind of draft circuit thing and things at the end of the season will give a massive indication to teams of whether or not he could lead them at the next level. Yeah,
you made a really interesting point about him looking weird. Like you both said, he looks a bit weird. Like me looking at his stats, like outside looking in, a bit weird also. Like he's big, hyped up big dude, big arm, 2 interceptions in 13 games. I'm thinking, so he looks pretty well. But then, like, you look at the awful ADOT from his stats, like not passing it very far despite having a big arm, and his completion percentage is terrible. Like, it doesn't tie up. It's just, it's a really strange. It's like the picture you've both painted of him. It just makes it a really strange prospect. Just go on,
Yeah, sorry, Kev. No, when I did the show a while back on my own, and I put the incoming QB class through the old traditional Bill Parcells method for grading quarterbacks, he came out terribly. I think he hit 1 out of 7 of the metrics, and even if he stood to improve this year, he was only going to finish on a max of 3. He's got a lot of work to do in comparison to keeping up with the others. Now, like, we spoke at length about how some of those stats are outdated and perhaps not the best way of measuring quarterbacks in the modern era. But the ones everyone else was hitting, the completion percentage, the touchdown to interceptions ratio, he was lagging behind, and it's a real worry.
Yeah, I think the last point I had on Allah was, it reminds me a little bit, just like everything that's come to light there, is a former Penn State QB, Will Levis. Like, he wasn't there long, but just big dude, a little bit strange, mayo in his coffee or whatever. Yeah, if Will Levis is like your median outcome or your higher end outcome, it's a solid fade to be making. And we're going to continue the fades. We're going to move to running back. We're going to be staying at the same university.
Yeah, we are. it wouldn't be a chance to fade a Devy prospect, right? If I couldn't lay the boot into Nick Singleton. So here we go. Strap yourselves in. So look, just to again clarify, because I think this has become a bit of a theme now, me battering Nick Singleton. It is not that I don't think he will be a decent player on a Sunday. I just think it's for regular Dynasty players who perhaps don't dip their toes into Devy, like, you will hear of these players that come with big reputations. And a couple of years ago, everyone in Devy was looking for the next Bijan. And here was this kid who was an absolute freak in terms of raw athletic kind of metrics and testing numbers. In 2023, weighing 228 pounds, he ran a 4.3940. He is athletic, he is strong, he is quick, and everyone was just quick to announce him like the new king of Devy, and he was going to come to the league, he was going to take over, and that was just how it was going to be. And whilst I think he'll be okay, like, I just want to basically put his name out there because he might be one that people have heard of, like, and just say don't overdraft him, because right now what he's put on tape at college in no way backs up the hype he had. So just for some context, like, just using PFF's rushing grades this year, his teammate at Penn State, Katron Allen, finished 23rd overall in terms of just raw PFF rushing grade. So I had to scroll down and keep scrolling down. I knew Nick Singleton didn't have a good year, and I'll talk about why in a minute, but I had to keep scrolling down. And then I scrolled back up to the top because I thought, sugar, I must have missed him. I hadn't. No, I just hadn't scrolled down far enough. 337th overall for rushing last season. Like, next to your future car salesman and window cleaners. Like, there was just nothing to get excited about. And when you put the tape on, like, it all comes from problems with his vision. He is so overly patient and reliant on his athletic skills that he waits and he waits and he waits. And I just don't think he's got any sense of where the holes are opening up. The number of times you watch him last year on tape run into the back of his own tackles, like in gaps that he thought were there that just weren't. It was frustrating. And, just for me, the alarm bells are ringing massively. He's dropped from 6 yards per carry to 4.4 yards per carry. This year, he only made an average of 2.8 yards after contact. So he's not even breaking away in tackles. There's this kind of fable at the moment that he's an incredible, like, receiving weapon and that he's going to be PPR gold. I don't particularly see that either. And whilst I'm sure, like, the athletic talent alone means he'll be worth a punt somewhere, I just don't see him being this back end of the first round in the NFL draft running back, a next kind of fantasy monster that people were making him out to be. And if I'm wrong, further down the line, so be it. But right now, I think it's just a message to not overdraft or expect too much from him.
Yeah, we'll cut this up if he does hit, or we'll delete the show. But big, fast, strong. It sounds like someone you'd be into, Jord. But where do you have him in your rankings? Like, do you think he'll go first round? Do you think he'll be in your top 3 or 4 next year?
For me, he won't go in the first round. I won't be taking him in the first round. Sorry, but as of now, but some people still will, just because, like you mentioned, he's also from the same program as Saquon Barkley as well, which a lot of people are following and think, not that he's the same player, but another 5-star. He's explosive, and like I say, he was good in his freshman season. And I can't help but get a little dig at Quinshon Judkins, even though he's talented. But Quinshon Judkins had a down year in his sophomore, like this year. Not as bad as Nick Singleton. There is such thing as a sophomore slump in college football, and his slump was quite severe compared to others. But he really needs to pick up this year. But like you said, his fellow running back performed better than him last season, and there is flashes there. That's what's, I think, the frustrating thing with Nick Singleton. There's flashes where you see him, like, and it might not be just a game. It might be like a drive, like in a game and stuff, where you see the ability, but then he's quiet. Like the next game, he's got 20 yards. From 12 carries. It's so inconsistent, and it's obviously it's worrying, going forward. Hopefully he can find his freshman form, in year 3. But yeah, I think I've got one share of him, so I'm quite happy in that regard as it stands at the moment. But yeah, I don't know. Obviously it'd be great if I could predict things so easily and stuff, but I just can't see how he would pick it up this year. I just think there's a lot of people that say he's got a high ceiling and stuff, and I'm struggling to see it, with the consistencies that I've seen.
I think the other thing is like Devy and college running back rooms do operate on a kind of meritocracy of how long you've been there, and him and Katron Allen have split carries fairly evenly during their seasons. But Quentin Martin, who's come in this year as a new freshman, really looks like he's going to add a spark in the passing game, which is where Nick Singleton, has perhaps shown more than he has as a pure runner. And I just see him being so elusive and good in that area that he's got the potential to maybe into some of those snaps as well. So just one to watch. And I'm not saying that I don't think he'll make it. I think he's definitely a draftable prospect. He'll likely be a day 2 running back. I wanted to come on here and just say for your listeners, Kev, who don't who will maybe only know the name from what they heard coming into college a few years ago, that he's not necessarily the same guy you heard of then. And, just to pump the brakes and be careful about where you pick him in the draft and when you take that chance on him.
Yeah. Think more like Miles Sanders, PSU, than Saquon Bark level. But one thing I will mention is Ali will love the fact that you've got one share just in case. That's something he'll be a big.
I think that share was at the start when he was a freshman, so I can't take credit for it.
Love that. So we're gonna keep it running back now, and we're gonna go to the place where the title was won this season, Michigan, and a running back there that you'll be fading, Jord.
Yeah, I think Jack wishes we won this episode because we've talked up an Ohio State wide receiver and we just slandered all his rivals players. Donovan Edwards from Michigan, obviously, we'll bring up the game again. He's on the front cover of the game. He's exciting in college football. He's we saw it in the unfortunately as someone who likes Washington in the final. He gave him the ball, he carved him up. But thinking about the next level, he just reminded me, like, everyone is comparing him to Alvin Kamara just because he can catch a ball quite a lot, which is outrageous. He's nothing like Alvin Kamara. Just because you can catch a ball and run a bit doesn't mean you're Alvin Kamara. He's like a bigger James Cook for me, to be honest with you. He can catch the ball. He is good at it, but he's. I feel like at the next level, that's what he's going to be used at. He's going to, like James Cook, relies on these receptions massively at the next level. For fantasy. Production, and take a lot of them away, and he's a basic running back, isn't he? And I feel that's what Donovan Edwards is. He lacks vision as a runner. He can burst through with the speed and stuff, and it's like his brain doesn't react quick enough compared to how fast he is. Once he gets through there, he's like blocked up and stuff and everything. He's like struggling where to go. Like I say, he's a great pass catcher, but he also can't block, so it's great being a great pass catcher and stuff, but if you can't block, you're not going to see the field in the NFL, unless you are like James Cook. If you go to a team where they're trying to find a role for him, but even then, what was James Cook last year? We were running back 13, 14 or something like that one, which that was massively through his receptions. Is that going to be sustainable going forward? I don't think so. So yeah, as much as as fun he is to watch in college, that's another thing with running backs. People see how fun and how easy it is for some runners to run in college and stuff, and it looks great and you're excited and stuff. But going on to the next level, you're playing against people who are bigger and just as fast and stuff. So it's a different kettle of fish, and I just don't think he, like I said, there's a role for him there, but I just don't think it's fantasy value, because there'll be people that be drafted. People will be drafting him in like maybe as it stands now, early round 2, maybe because of the hype of last year in the national championship game, maybe late round 1. But yeah, just too high for me.
Yeah, just a word of caution to people. Like, if there's a college player on the front of the game, like it doesn't always mean they're great. Like Denard Robinson many years ago was on the front cover and did absolutely nothing in the NFL. So a lot of people obviously see the Michigan link and Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum. Like, how close are these guys as, say, prospects coming in? Obviously, that's quite difficult to say because there's another year for Edwards. But Phil, where do you think Edwards and Corum rank in terms of sort of how they'll be viewed next year?
So Donovan Edwards obviously struggled with injuries last season, but even before that, I don't think it's any real surprise that in the biggest moments for Michigan, it was Corum they went to and not Edwards. I'm kind of with Jord. Like he's a prospect that I don't really want any part of in terms of drafting him. Like he's just not on my radar as someone that's going to produce at the next level. He reminds me of oh goodness me, his name escapes me. That's how good he was. Myles Gaskin. Right, I can see him being that at the next level. That's where his profile is for me. You know, like George said, he can't block. Like, so he's not going to get on the field and be productive. Like, you know, yeah, with the ball in his hands, he's fast. He's kind of exciting if you can scheme him open, but I just don't see him being able to sustain it at the next level. Blake Corum and him are night and day. How they actually shared that room the way they did, I don't know, because Blake Corum's far superior. And then you saw the draft capital or lack thereof that even Corum got, you know, in that kind of much looked over running back class. I think Donovan Edwards is a day 3 at best prospect in the NFL draft. And I would just steer away. I'd just steer away completely.
The endorsements keep coming for Donovan Edwards on this section, right? I think, yeah, I thought he was outplayed by Corum. Obviously, Corum's a little bit older, so that's expected to a certain extent. But yeah, Corum was around 3 guys, so it makes sense that if it's the same trajectory, would Edwards be not around 3, but a day 3 guy? And then it's easy to tell that story just from a process point of view, not even thinking about Edwards or what's been on tape or anything like that. New coach, they lost a ton of talent on the offense. Is he going to do as well as last season? It's looking unlikely. And then the last note I made, which just shows I can't write, I put 3 down skillet, must improve pass pro. So I can't even spell skill set, but that just ties in with James Cook, like 3 down skill set potentially. But it's not going to be pass blocking ever, so it's not really a 3 down skill set. Now, speaking of players that can do a number of things, we're coming on to the first wide receiver fade, and it could be a cornerback fade as well.
And this is exactly why he's there, because he profiles as one of the most talented players in the entire draft. I'm going to talk about Travis Hunter at Colorado. We talk about players that deserve to be on the front cover of the College 25 game. Travis Hunter is electric at everything he does. He is absolutely elite on both sides of the ball as a receiver and as a corner. And this is just where this is purely the reason I wanted to bring him up. If somehow people aren't aware of him, they will be. I'm sure, because at Colorado, playing under Prime, he's going to continue to make headlines. And as someone who's now firmly in the draft window, he's going to be someone that gets talked about frequently. All I'm going to say right now is the reason I've mentioned him here is particularly if you played Devy, and you fancy taking a punt on him in your Devy drafts, just be careful, because personally, just from what I've seen, I think he projects as a better corner than he does receiver. And I think it's corner where a lot of the kind of draft nicks and experts around the NFL draft perceive him playing at the next level, in which case you've spaffed to pick up the ball. And, you know, why? So for me, listen, he's insanely talented, but I'm conscious, particularly if you're drafting Devy, that you've just absolutely wasted a pick, and likely a high profile pick as well to try and land a player that talented. I think it could be better spent elsewhere. And listen, if he decides that next level, nope, I want to play receiver, someone is going to get an absolute hell of a player. Just lightning quick, electric in everything he does, gets off the line so quickly. But yeah, I just think he's going to play corner at the next level. So yeah, stay clear of him at receiver.
Love that. It's like it's just like it's like a carrot dangling, isn't it, in front of you? Like, should I go for it? But it's potentially just going to lead you to down one of them fake holes in the ground where you just fall into the trap, etc. So yeah, what's your thoughts on Travis Hunter, Jord? You think he's going to be corner as well?
Yeah, I wouldn't be taking any. I've not taken any Travis Hunter, and I won't be taking any Travis Hunter. I think there were a start draft that were in. I think someone took him in the second round, which was outrageous and stuff and everything. Like you say, Phil's right. You know, if I had to put someone said to me, you've got to put your house on where he's going to be. I'll be putting it on cornerback because, like Phil says, he's fantastic at both positions, but at the next level, you know, translating to a cornerback, you know, I'm not saying he can't play wide receiver, but there's so many more talented wide receivers that come through than cornerbacks and stuff, and he could be an elite cornerback at the next level, and be asking for a lot more money when it comes to, you know, like his contract in 5 years' time. I just, there's nothing much else to say. You know, like I say, we know he's talented. It's just more the fade of. I think I'm going. This is a bit different stuff. I remember I took a win on I think it was 2 years ago on a quarterback for Notre Dame called Tyler Buckner. He's now, I think he's come back to football, but he went to go play lacrosse at Alabama and stuff and everything. And that's what it's basically like if you're drafting Travis Hunter and stuff and everything. It's just, it feels like a wasted selection.
Yeah, like as a receiver prospect, like he's a day one receiver, but like probably mid round if you're gonna take him as a wide receiver. But he stands like as a corner, like Sauce Gardner type stratosphere in terms of where you'd pick him. Not necessarily the same type of player, but in terms of profile and like how high you'd draft him. Like, so for me, I think all these players eventually are guided to go to wherever they're going to make the most money. And yeah, so for me, he's always going to go corner rather than receiver.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see who goes early in the draft, him or Sanders' lad as such. But yeah, I think two-way player, easy fade. You don't have to mess around with that risk and blow like that early draft capital. And yeah, I think from the bits I'd seen at wide receiver looked great. Like you think someone as a two-way player, think, it's going to be very clear as to what's his best position. I think like it'd be a really good wide receiver, but there's just that too much risk to take on at that spot. So we're going to come to the last wide receiver fade, the last fade of tonight's show, and obviously there had to be an Oregon player in there, right?
I mean, I was thinking more from the opposite of what I go for in wide receivers, because Tez Johnson, Oregon, 5'10", that's fine. 160 pounds is that Tez Johnson. You know, it's red flag straight away for me. And again, put on the film, you know, college football film, and he's electric. He makes people miss. He's brilliant to watch. It's like a lot of college athletes and stuff that don't make it into the NFL. Sometimes they can look so good on a college field just because of that, of how it is in college. You know, like you're coming up against younger cornerbacks, coming up against less physical. But when he gets to the next level, you know, he's going to come up against fast, like defensive backs, you know, like linebackers and stuff, but a lot more physical and stuff. And if you're going away in 106 pounds a wide receiver, you're probably not going to be in the field that much. Not just because they don't like you, probably because you're going to be injured a lot from some of these tackles that people are going to wrap around you. Yeah, I've seen him like in drafting, like style Devy drafts, should I say, he goes about round 3 or 4, and even that's like too rich. I mean, I just think he's going to be one of them players that gets, because of what he can do on the field and stuff, you know, like in college, people are going to get really excited about him. He's probably going to go a lot higher than he should. And I know, like, speaking about a game made by EA, and there's a lot of things when it goes into ratings that doesn't translate to the pitch, but this guy's rated higher on the game than his teammate Evan Stewart, which is unreal stuff, and that's crazy. Evan Stewart's a really good talent. Yeah, he's maybe dropped down a little bit, but like he can easily pick that up. He's talented, but yeah, I just think there's going to be a lot of hype around him, and I just think it's not warranted for someone that size. Again, that comes across as sizist, from my lessons before and everything, but it's nothing to do with that. It's, honestly, I'm not a sizist person. It's just very light for a wide receiver in the NFL.
The 6'5" giant saying he's not sizist is incredible. But serious note, yeah, I think interesting that there's both Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart, both of Oregon, that I believe can both come out next draft class. What sort of gap would you have it fill in terms of those two prospects?
So like right now for me, Evan Stewart is somewhere between my third and fourth receiver in that class. I think it's a toss-up at the moment between your flavour between him and Egbuka for that number 3 spot. Tez Johnson, I've got right the way down near a 10. I look again. We talked earlier, didn't we, about this idea of copycat and people liking what's worked recently, and people will have Tank Dell in mind and see the success and forget about the broken leg when he was asked to do something remotely physical. But then, I look at him more along what you could expect from Tutu Atwell. I do think the only thing Tez Johnson's really got working for him in terms of upping his draft stock at the moment is if you play in a league that is going to adapt its scoring to reflect the new kick and punt return, rules in your scoring, because he is a good return man. But that aside, like I think I'm with Jord. There's so many guys in this draft. It's deep in terms of your skill players. I'd personally be looking elsewhere as well.
Yeah, 5th year slot only prospect. It's not ideal with what you're looking for. As much as I do love a slot archetype, I think it's more on the bigger slot that can handle a workload and that can really push that ceiling. And what sort of ceiling it's got. We saw someone like Josh Downs, who was an excellent prospect, that's essentially being a slot only guy. And look, I think he had a great rookie season, but Tez Johnson's not near Josh Downs in my head as to sort of the talent levels. But maybe Tez Johnson will be a nice selection in next year's Scottish Bowl with the crazy settings they've got in that. Okay, so that brings us to the end of tonight's show where we've previewed the 2025 rookie class with the amazing Wildcard Devy boys, Phil and Jord. Also shouting out Jack, who's unable to be with us tonight.
Couldn't be asked.
Couldn't be bothered, could he?
No, just leave him.
Nah. We'll edit that bit out about giving him some praise. So, we'll come to you first, Phil. Anything that you'd like to share or plug?
No, not at the moment, mate. Thank you very much for having us. Just keep looking at the X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Wildcard Devy. As particularly as we're only like 6 weeks now from college ball, so we'll get the good times rolling.
Excellent stuff, Jord. How about yourself?
Yeah, just appreciate having me on. It's been a while and stuff. Shake that rust off, podcasting. I've enjoyed it. Yeah, just follow the Devy team. Phil and Jack have done a fantastic job while I've been transitioning and jobs, and some great content. And we'll be joining up with them again. So just in time for the college season. So look forward to it.
It's got me more excited than the actual Devy game, the college game. So we've gone full circle. You've been awesome tonight, lads. And obviously the show that you do it's great. Like someone like me that's into Devy but still learning, it's helping me develop and giving me the game theory to go along with prospects to really push forward. So well done on that. Thanks for coming on tonight's show. I've got my pen and paper out. I've made some notes. I made some really terrible jokes as well, but I'm not going to stop doing that anytime soon. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to follow and subscribe to us on X and YouTube at Fantasy Wildcard and at Wildcard Dynasty and at Wildcard Devy. Join us for our show each week of the off season. Thank you once again. Have a good one. And do you know what? We'll see you again soon.
When you have the wild card, you have the power to change the game.